Someone catches you talking to yourself, and you can see it in their face. Not alarm, exactly. More like that half-second pause where they file you somewhere slightly unusual. You weren't confused. You weren't spiraling. You were just thinking out loud, the way you've always done. And if you've been doing this your whole life, you've probably gotten that look more than once. Here's what that look gets wrong. Talking
It's
to yourself
interesting
isn't a
how
symptom.
interesting.
It's a signature.
Or maybe it works
And the
better
psychology
like
behind it
this.
says something very
Mhm.
specific
Yes,
about how your
this
mind
logic
is built.
makes more sense
Here are 5
now.
things. The first thing it says, your brain is running more than one conversation at once. People assume self-talk is a sign of scattered thinking that something isn't quite connecting. From the outside, muttering to yourself in a quiet room can look like confusion. And to be fair, the optics aren't great. Muttering to yourself in a quiet room does register as something slightly off to most people. That perception is real, and the first impression that comes with it doesn't just vanish because you know what's actually happening inside you. But here's what's actually happening. Dr. Charles Ferneyhoff is a cognitive neuroscientist at Durham University. In The Voices Within, he describes inner speech as internalized dialogue, the mind holding 2 or more competing perspectives simultaneously, testing them against each other. When that process externalizes, you're not losing the thread. You have more threads going than one internal channel can contain. Most people run one track of conscious thought at a time. You've been running several without anyone ever explaining that's what was happening. The second thing, you've built a self-regulation system that doesn't need anyone else to run. You've probably been told you're too in your head, too internal, not reactive enough in the moment. And here's the honest part, there's something real in that. There are times you're physically in the room, but mentally narrating what's happening inside it. That's an accurate observation. But here's what it actually is. Research by Dr. Ethan Kross and his team at the University of Michigan, published in Psychological Science, found that distanced self-talk, addressing yourself in the second person, the way a coach would, significantly reduces emotional reactivity and improves decision-making under pressure. Not detachment, regulation. Think about what that looks like in a room. A man walks into a board meeting where the data doesn't hold together. The slides are up, the numbers don't align, and the room shifts. Underneath everything, he hears himself say, "You've been here before. Stay steady." 4 words. No audience. He doesn't spiral. He walks them through a revised framing, and they follow. Nobody in that room knew he just talked himself off a ledge. That's not a sign of instability. That's a regulation system most people are still borrowing from someone else. The third thing, your performance under pressure has a mechanism behind it. You've probably been told to stop overthinking and just act. That all the internal preparation, the running commentary before you move, the half-sentence rehearsal before you speak makes you slower, not sharper. Other people just go. You go through something first. And for certain tasks, they're not entirely wrong. There are moments when the conversation runs long and the window closes. That's real. But for others, the conversation is the execution. Research by Dr. Antonis Hatzigeorgiades and colleagues, published in Perspectives on Psychological Science in 2011, reviewed decades of studies on self-talk and performance. What they found: instructional self-talk specific, directed guidance you give yourself during complex tasks significantly improves performance, particularly in work requiring sustained focus, fine judgment, and precision under pressure. People who've been doing this since childhood, narrating their way through problems out loud, have been training a system long before it had a scientific name. Your self-talk isn't a tick. It's a calibration tool you built before anyone told you it was useful. But here's the question worth sitting with. Is the voice in your head a coach or a critic you've gotten so comfortable with that you stopped noticing the difference? Because there's a version of this that sharpens you. And there's a version that replays the same loop on a slightly different frequency and mistakes familiarity for clarity. Both can sound like wisdom. Only you know which one's been getting more airtime. The fourth thing, you have strong internal direction. There's a reputation that self-talkers carry hard to reach, difficult to redirect once they've made up their mind. And some of that is accurate. Clinical psychologist Dr. Linda Sapadin has observed that people who habitually externalize their thinking tend to develop stronger internal direction using language to move through decisions, rather than relying on social confirmation to reach them. You don't need the room to tell you you're on the right track. You built a system that does that. Most people are still outsourcing that function to whoever they trust most that week. The fifth thing, and the one that matters most, you think about your own thinking. People call this overthinking. Sometimes that overlap is real. But metacognition, the capacity to observe your own cognitive processes as they happen, is one of the most researched predictors of judgment quality and adaptive learning. Dr. John Flavel at Stanford, who pioneered foundational work in this field, found that the ability to catch your own errors in reasoning, to notice when you're rationalizing, instead of actually thinking, that skill is rare. Most people never develop it because they never practice watching their own mind. You've been practicing it out loud for years. Most people think. You watch yourself think. That's not the same thing. I was sitting in a strategy session once, half tracking the conversation and half running a counter-argument in my head out loud, barely above a whisper. The person next to me stopped mid-sentence. They looked over and said, "Are you okay?" I said yes. What I didn't say was that I'd just worked out the problem they'd been circling for 20 minutes. You can't explain that in the moment. You just let them wonder. If you're a man, this has probably cost you something specific. Other men read internal calibration as hesitation because in their model, decisive people react first and process later. Your pause before speaking looks like uncertainty to them. It's not. It's the reason your decisions tend to hold up longer. The ones who react fastest in the room are often the ones who revisit their choices the most. Most people are still looking for the right person to think with. You've been that person for yourself for a long time. The most capable people in any room are usually the ones who already settled the argument with themselves before they walked in. Which of these 5 hit closest to home? Drop it in the comments. And if you know someone who's been called strange for this their whole life, send this to them. Sometimes just having a name for something changes it.